I am 31, found out my wife, F30, has been getting a coworker, F29, to spy on me at work. We have been married for 5 years and together for 8. Not really great at writing, so apologies in advance. I'll try to include as much info as I think is relevant, but please feel free to ask me for more in the comments if I wasn't clear about something. My wife has been jealous of a coworker at my job for some time now. Her name is Heather, and she's in her early 20s, tall, pretty, just observations as I have a pair of eyes. Heather is nice, but I don't go out of my way to talk to her. We worked together on a project about 8 months ago, which is when this seems to have started. Heather, 3 other co-workers, and I were assigned to this project, and so for a good month we spent much time together at work. My wife saw her one day when we were all coming out, and she was picking me up to go to dinner at my parents'. She immediately asked who she was and if she worked at my job. I told her she was new and was put on our project. For the entire duration of the project, my wife was in a bad mood almost every day and would take every opportunity to tear Heather down, saying she was lanky or her nose was crooked or whatever. She is insecure about her height because she's 5'4" and not a 6-foot-tall glamazon. I love my wife's height and her petite figure and tell her this every day. She is extremely gorgeous and turns heads whenever we walk downtown. But once she saw Heather was tall and not ugly, she was convinced I thought she was hot. I kept telling her she was just a colleague and that I had no interest in her, regardless. She would greet her coldly, or not at all if she saw my colleagues. Our home and jobs are located downtown, so we usually walk to meet up with each other after work. My wife would start dressing up a lot more than usual when she'd come meet me and make a big show of jumping on me and stuff. She works at a very nice bakery and usually brings leftovers from work for us or people at my job. She always gave things out to everyone except Heather. Eventually, Heather picked up on the hostility and approached me to ask about why my wife was acting that way. I simply told her I didn't know. Maybe because she didn't know her as long as the other colleagues, she was distant. She seemed to accept that, but would no longer leave at the same time as everyone else, and would either go early or hang back. Brian, another coworker, approached me on Friday and asked to talk to me privately. He told me he had been at lunch with Kate, the coworker in question, and she had gone to pay for the food. She left her phone on the table. It lit up with a text, and he saw it was from Valerie, my wife's name. The text basically said, "Did you see him talking to her today? What did he say? Then, do you think Heather is going to stay at that job long?" When Kate came back to the table, he asked her if that was Valerie, as in my wife. She got a deer in headlights look and said, "Oh yeah, we text sometimes. We're friends." He said he thought it was weird because she put her phone in her purse without even checking the messages he had asked about and wanted to go. I went home and I snooped on my wife's phone. I know it was wrong, but I had a feeling that if I asked her, she would deny it or become defensive and not show me the phone. There were weeks worth of texts that basically were little reports on what went on at work. If Heather talked to me, what we talked about, did she hug me goodbye? Did she touch me at all? Did I laugh at her jokes? Did the guys think she was hot? Did I join in with them? Did I look like I was flirting? Kate was also apparently talking up Valerie at work to Heather. She made sure to mention often we were married, how great Valerie was, how long we'd been together. I even read one that said, "I told her Val works in a bakery. I bet if anyone tried to steal her husband, she'd just chop them up and bake them into a pie." Ha ha, which was pretty fucking creepy. A lot of things started coming together then. Heather was much more distant lately. She seemed hesitant to say bye at the end of the day. We used to talk casually, like everyone else at work, but now she would just say hi and bye mostly. I've been sitting on this information all weekend. Today at work, I could hardly look at Heather for shame of it, and I couldn't look at Kate for my disgust. I haven't been able to approach my wife about this because I just don't know how or what to say. I feel frustrated and very much weirded out. I feel gross too, like I've had my every move watched without knowing it, and as if just talking to a coworker is doing something wrong. I haven't talked to anyone else about this. Not even Brian, who first mentioned it. I don't know what to do from here. I don't even know what this means for our relationship. It feels like something big has changed, because I haven't been able to look at her the same way. and all my interactions with her since Friday have been kind of forced and faked. I need to talk to her and figure out what to do. Update, September 29th, 2016, 2 days later. First off, would like to thank everyone for their responses and for taking the time to give me advice. I did not expect the 300 or so comments I received, so please don't take it personally if I didn't reply to yours. I was very much overwhelmed by and grateful for the support. On to the update. Took the general advice and confronted Valerie and used therapy as a non-negotiable term. So Tuesday when I posted, I saw Kate at work and bluntly said, "You don't need to report on me today or any day after this. I'll be talking to my wife after I'm done today." She got this blank look on her face and said she didn't know what I meant, but I noticed her hanging around significantly less than usual after that. I did my best to focus on my work, but I asked to go home early because it was just impossible with everything looming ahead for me to concentrate. I went home and texted my wife that I was home early and I needed to talk to her when she was done work, so to please come home right away. I got a bunch of "what's going on? What's wrong?" texts, but just kept telling her I'd talk to her at home. She got home and I got into it right away. Told her I knew about the text with Kate, about the spying, the harassment of Heather. She was mad at first and kept adamantly saying she did nothing wrong, and if I had nothing to hide, why did it matter? I told her to please not play me for a fool, and outlined all the things her behavior meant, like lack of trust and sheer vindictiveness. I brought up the consequences, like my damaged trust and drama in the workplace. I also brought up how my job could be at risk because of this. She made a point to say they couldn't fire me without also removing Heather, as she'd say she was being inappropriate towards a married man in the workplace, and Kate would back her up. That brought us to a heated argument, and it ended with her crying and me yelling. She started asking, "Who the fuck is Heather to you that you give so much of a shit anyway?" And derailed into this whole thing about me caring too much about someone I claimed meant nothing to me. I don't want to get into too much detail because this would be extremely long, but the conversation was a good 5 to 6 hours long. It ended with her agreeing to go to couples therapy and individual if the couples therapist so deemed it. She apologized to me a lot and admitted she had been acting out of jealousy and anger towards Heather. She asked if I wanted her to apologize to Heather in person, but I said no. I didn't want there to be more drama. I watched as she texted Kate and told her to stop and that she was sorry for dragging her into it. She gave me the password to her phone for transparency, but I told her it was pointless, as if she really wanted to continue, she could just delete the texts before I saw them, or change the name or whatever. I told her I expected her to keep her word to stop because if I got any indication that this was still going on after our talk, that I would separate from her and file for divorce. Yesterday morning, things still seemed tense, but it was to be expected. She still kissed me before going to work, and we had a normal text conversation on our commute. I get to work, and Kate apologizes to me, and I accept it, but tell her our work relationship from here on out is forever changed, and there's no going back from it. I tell her that beyond work conversation, we have nothing else to talk about. She accepted it and went on to start the day. Lunch rolls in. I ask Brian if he'll let me buy him lunch and thank him for telling me. We go to have lunch and he asks me if I've heard Heather put in her request for a transfer. Apparently on Tuesday when I left early, Heather asked why I wasn't at my desk because she had brought over the week's project booklet and had seen me there earlier. Kate of all people told her I had gone home to deal with personal issues. When Heather asked if everything was all right, Kate told her that she hoped so because I don't want to see someone come between Valerie and World's Gone Mad's marriage. There must have been a bit more to the exchange because Heather went all the way up to our boss's boss and asked for a transfer to a different department. I feel extremely embarrassed because, without a doubt, I feel like that guy now in the office. I know Brian isn't a gossip, but of course people will ask why Heather transferred, and without a doubt it will eventually get out. People who used to talk to me casually probably will stop. The women of the office will feel as if they need to keep their distance. And I feel so ashamed that I can't even approach Heather to apologize for the stress this must have caused her. I doubt she even would want to see my face at this point. So yes, wife has agreed to counseling both couples and individual. Apologize to me, all those things. But the damage is now done and I feel like complete shit about work now. I guess I shouldn't have been so naive to think that just fixing this with my wife would make everything else go away. Anyway, thank you all for the advice. I was feeling very at sea before writing that post. I still feel a bit lost as far as how to deal with the fallout of all of this, but at least I have one part of it sorted or on its way to being sorted out, so that's a positive. This story is a painful but eye-opening look at what happens when love gets clouded by insecurity and trust is replaced with suspicion. At its core, this isn't just about a jealous spouse. It's about the breakdown of healthy communication, personal boundaries, and emotional safety in a relationship. The husband, after working on a project with a young coworker, Heather, becomes the target of his wife's growing jealousy. But instead of expressing her fears or insecurities in a calm, respectful manner, the wife chooses to secretly involve a third party, another coworker named Kate, to spy on her own husband at work. What started as silent envy turns into a months-long surveillance mission, full of manipulation, deceit, and unnecessary drama. And what makes this situation worse is that the husband didn't do anything wrong. He stayed professional. He maintained distance. He reassured his wife. But none of that was enough. Why? Because her jealousy wasn't based on his actions. It was based on her own fears and imagination. And when that happens, there's no logic that can calm someone down, no explanation that can change their mind. What happened here was more than spying. It was a violation of emotional boundaries. The husband was treated like a suspect, not a partner. His workplace became an extension of his marriage drama. Every small, harmless interaction was dissected behind his back. And the worst part? An innocent woman, Heather, was made to feel so uncomfortable that she requested a transfer just to escape the situation. Let that sink in. Heather didn't flirt. She didn't pursue anyone. She just existed. And for that, she was subtly harassed, indirectly humiliated, and pushed out of her work environment. That's not just unfair, it's toxic. As for the husband's response, he handled it better than most people would. He confronted the issue head-on. He demanded accountability. He set boundaries. He insisted on therapy, not just for their relationship, but to help his wife confront her own unhealthy patterns. That takes strength. That takes maturity. And that deserves respect. But despite all that, the damage is done. His professional reputation has a shadow over it. Office dynamics have shifted. He now walks through the halls of his workplace with the heavy feeling of being that guy, the one whose personal life created tension. And while he had no control over his wife's actions, he's the one left to carry the emotional burden in front of colleagues, friends, and maybe even strangers. So what's the takeaway? First, communication is everything. If you're feeling insecure in a relationship, talk to your partner, not about them, not around them, but to them. Secrets, spying, and involving outsiders only poison the relationship further. Second, jealousy is not love. It's fear in disguise. And if left unchecked, it turns into obsession. That's what we saw here. And unless that fear is confronted in therapy or through self-reflection, it doesn't just go away. Third, if you ever feel like your personal boundaries are being crossed, speak up. Whether it's in a marriage or at work, no one deserves to feel watched, judged, or controlled. You have a right to your own peace and privacy. To the husband in this story, you did the right thing. You kept calm, you stood your ground, and even though the aftermath is painful, you've taken the first steps to heal and rebuild. Just remember, this wasn't your shame to carry. And to everyone listening, trust is the foundation of any relationship. Once it's broken, it can be rebuilt, but only with effort from both sides. Without honesty, without vulnerability, and without real change, there's no future. Love alone is not enough.